Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. This morning, it'll probably be this afternoon by the time I get this posted, we're going to talk about what I read last week. I may or may not share the result of something I did, which I posted on Instagram. And trying to get this all done before the groceries get delivered. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, what did I read last week? The June reading trend is still pretty on track. So let's talk about what I DNF'd this week first. I DNF'd 2 arcs. The first one was Playing for Keeps by Tristan Cohen. And this one killed itself. I refuse to read a book in which the use of pronouns violates all the rules of proper English. And I DNF'd it as soon as that occurred. Don't feel bad about it. Don't even remotely care. Next book I DNF'd this week that was an arc, and this one surprised me, and I feel bad about it, but that's okay. It was Paints and Pixels by Kristi and Hunter. And I will talk about Kristi later in this video. The protagonist, I just didn't like. She allowed herself to get steamrolled constantly. She was wishy-washy and angsty and apparently incapable of standing up for herself. And that is just not a character archetype that I in any sense enjoy. And thus, I DNF'd it. I did talk to Kristi about it on Instagram. If you're following me on Instagram, that post is available. I was sad because I really, really enjoy her Regency writing. It's vastly, vastly different in my opinion. So the next 2 DNFs are library books. One is what I'm going to classify as a soft DNF. That is the Saturday night at the Lakeside Supper Club by J. Ryan Stradhal. I love J. Ryan Stradhal as an author. His previous 2 books, which are the Kitchens of the Great Midwest and the Lager Queen of Minnesota, are both amazing reads. If you live in the Midwest, if you have, family in Minnesota, you will understand and relate to these books immensely. So it is not the writing style of this book for the soft DNF. The opening chapter or 2, the female protagonist has just miscarried and she hasn't told anyone, and all of that emotion is there. I am not in the mood to read about that. I think for the first time, possibly ever, I have talked more about my miscarriages in the last month than I ever have before to people outside of my husband. And I am pretty sure I am not in the emotional place to read that at the moment. I probably could. I wasn't crying in the book. So it's a soft DNF. I will come back and finish this book. The next one is a hard DNF. That is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is science fiction. This is a huge surprise for me. And by huge, I mean a huge surprise for me. This series is quite beloved. He's known for killing off characters. This is young adult fantasy. It's set on Mars. There's a caste system. The Reds, in the title, obviously the Reds, are at the bottom of the caste system, and I DNF'd the book right after the point at which the 16-year-old protagonist hero watches his wife's execution at 16 and helps execute her, because that's part of how you have to do it on Mars in the book. And I felt no emotional impact. None. I didn't cry. As we all know, me tearing up is not unheard of in a book. Didn't cry. Didn't feel anything. Didn't care. One way or the other. It was clearly a setup to move the plot line along, to get our hero to revolt against the evil capitalistic overlords. Wasn't interested, didn't care, didn't want to read some man's treatise about how capitalism is bad on Mars. DNF'd it, moved on. And those were my DNFs for the week. I did have an otherwise good reading week. That reading week started off with, and these are all, 2 of them are NetGalley arcs, and 1 was a Kindle Unlimited read. So we'll do the NetGalley arcs first. The first NetGalley, nope. 2 were Kindle Unlimited reads, 1 was a NetGalley arc. So let's do the NetGalley arc first. That was The Fake Out by Shannon and Peterson. And this was so good. This was so good. It is an engagement of convenience story, and our heroine agrees to become fake engaged to our professional football player so that he can save his philanthropy job after an alleged scandal. The scandal really isn't a scandal. She really doesn't want to do this, but he offers to pay her, and it will help with her mother's medical expenses. It will help him, who she's finds out isn't such a bad dude. And it was set in Texas. It is charming. It is funny. It is emotional. You will laugh out loud at these characters. You will laugh out loud at the grand declaration at the end of the book. You will cry because the emotion in this book was phenomenal. There's character growth. She has some angst, but she works through the angst, and she works through her emotional upheaval in an adult fashion, and she doesn't sit there and pity herself and go, woe is me, and there is none of that. She has, in essence, sucked it up and is getting on with her life and doing what she needs to do to help her family and her town. And it was just phenomenal. I loved it. I laughed out loud. I gave it, because I have to on NetGalley, I gave it 5 stars. All of those characters are more than welcome to walk into the pub and sit down. They would entertain. They would laugh, and they would get along really well. With the next book I'm going to talk about, with a couple in the next book. The next book was a Kindle Unlimited impulse pickup because my reading mood was a little wonky. And that was The Buy-In by Emma St. Clair. Couldn't remember the title. It is the first in the Love from Sheet Cake, Texas series. Or no. I'll put the name of the series right here. And this one is set in my general area of Texas, which is pretty meaningless. Texas is so big, it's hard to say general area, but general area of Texas. And Sheet Cake, Texas, fictional town, but it makes perfect sense. Our heroine is a librarian. The town is dying. Her mother has had a stroke and is in care. She's taking care of her now 5-year-old niece, which her drug addict sister dumped on her when the baby was days old, and is now suing for custody. And the book opens up with our hero, Pat, and his father, Tank. And Tank informs Pat that he has just bought a town. Pat thinks Dad has lost his ever-loving mind and is, determined to talk him out of it, see what he can possibly do to, get it nullified. And then Dad says, oh, by the way, the town I bought is Sheet Cake, Texas. And Pat's jaw drops to the floor because that's where his long-lost true love from college that he never should have broken up with right before the NFL draft lives. And he's suddenly all on board. So Lindy, our heroine, lives in Sheet Cake, Texas. Pat, our hero, is determined to win back the love he's never lost. Pat is retired from the NFL from an injury. It's about 5 years since they were in college. And this is a laugh out loud, funny, romantic, completely clean. I should mention the fake out is completely clean as well. Sweet romance. It brings in characters from her other series, but you don't need to have read the other series to understand and love those side characters. It is funny. It is emotional. You fall in love with the town of Sheet Cake, Texas. You fall in love with, Pat and Tank and that entire extended family. You fall in love with Lindy, our heroine's friends. It is... I so enjoyed it. And Pat and Lindy would just be great friends with our other Texas couple from the fake out, which a former football player, a current football player, their crazy, librarian, other halves. I loved it. The Buy-In is a marriage of convenience story that turns into love, and they were, in love when they broke up, although neither one of them said it, way back in college. So this was just joy to read. Just pure joy to read, and I will read far more from Emma St. Clair. She's got a decent back catalog, and I'm here for it. Last up was The Noble Masquerade by Kristi Ann Hunter. This is the first book in the Hawthorne House series. And this is a night and day difference from Pixels and Paint, which I DNF'd earlier in the video. This is set in Regency, England. Our heroine is strong and she knows her own mind, and she isn't wishy-washy. I do not understand the whole wishy-washy trend. I think I need to make a video or something because I don't get it. So the premise is that, and I've forgotten her name. I've read so many books this week, I've forgotten her name. I will put her name down here. She gets frustrated. Her brother's a duke. Her mother's just intent that she never put a step wrong in life, and she's been drilling this into her head since she was 5. And so when she's 5, she decides, she needs to vent her frustration. So she pens a letter to her brother's best friend while they're at boarding school named Marsh. And she puts it in her trunk and it never gets mailed. This trend continues through her entire life. She's currently, I want to say 22 in the book. And she's still writing letters to Marsh, putting them in the trunk. Everybody knows not to mail anything that's on blue paper, which is the only time it's used is when she's writing to Marsh. Her brother comes home and is home for a while, and he gets a new butler, or not butler, valet, named Marlowe. And Marlowe mails a blue letter to Marsh. And thus begins the love story between Lady and Marsh. It is funny. She is snarky. She is sweet. Marlowe, aka Marsh, is funny and protective and sometimes just asinine because he doesn't think she's capable of doing something, and she surprises him again and again and again. I cannot wait to read the other 3 books in this series that deal with the other 3 siblings. It was just joyful and humorous, and everybody knew who they were as an adult. Even her flighty younger sister, Lady Georgina, who nobody thinks has a brain in her head because she's all, hyped up about her first season and coming out and, making the best match possible. I have a feeling everyone is vastly underestimating Georgina. So we will see if I am right. So that's what I read this week. Those 3 that I finished this week are all absolutely, I will read more from each of those authors. They were all funny. They were all sweet. They were all completely clean. They all moved me, and they all made me laugh. And I am not in the mood to not laugh. So, what am I going to read this week? I have a library book, and it is calling my name. So this is probably what I'm starting next. It is The Crimson Cord by Jill Eileen Smith. I have started it. I think I've read the first chapter. I am going to love this book immensely. I can already tell. So I don't think I will have a problem getting through that. I will probably pick up another arc or 2. See if I can knock a couple more off my list. And maybe pull something off of my June pile of possibilities, but none of them are calling to me, and I am okay with that. I'm not necessarily pleased with myself for that, but I'm okay with that. It is what it is. So that's what I read last week. Now for a little sneak peek from the Instagram post that I haven't done yet. So if you saw the Instagram post, I posted about the latest issue of Just Cross Stitching, and I posted a aqua pair of kids. Just a picture of an aqua pair of kids. And I finished one of the aqua pair of kids, so I will share it here. You ready? What? And then I drop it. And there you go. So they look like this. I did not do this side. I may or may not. But I did do this side. And there's a little close-up. I love them. It really pops in real life. I don't know if it pops in the video. I will put a picture of at least that shoe on Instagram today. I did do the other one. I didn't like the way it came out, so I took out all that thread. It's all been frogged out, and I need to finish it this week. I will say that unlike regular cross stitch, doing shoes is a little more difficult, not because it's difficult to stitch it. Getting the needle in and out of the canvas, by the time you finish the side of the shoe, is very painful to the tips of your fingers. Totally worth it in the end, but still painful to the tips of the fingers. So, that's my life update. Summer has hit here in Texas. It's the first time it's going to be in triple digits this week. So, there we go. Please comment down below. Tell me what you read last week, what you're looking forward to reading this week, if you have any suggestions. Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.